My name is Barry Walsh and I'm co-owner of Buffalo Barry's Indian Art. And this video is being made by my daughter Anna Walsh today. I'm going to talk about today one of my favorite carvers, perhaps my favorite carver of all time. His name was Wilson Tawaquaptewa, and he lived from 1873 to 1960. He was a unique individual in a number of ways. He was an important political figure in Hopi land early in the 20th century and all the way to his death in 1960. But he also became an innovative, arguably unique artist in the history of Hopi Katsina carving. Just to give you a preview, here's a spectacular doll by Tawaquaptewa, probably made about 1945 or 50. And it's quite large, the second largest one I've ever seen other than one at the Heard Museum. And I'll talk a bit about this carving. A one-horned figure with bare paws on his face and a feather coming out of the side of his head. Tawaquaptewa totally made it up, and I'll explain that later. So Tawaquaptewa was born into the Bear clan in the old village of Araiavi on Third Mesa. And Araiavi at that time was the largest village on Hopi land and politically the most important. And he became the Kikmongwi, or the chief of the Bear clan, in 1904. And things were heating up on Hopi land back then because there was a major disagreement between two factions. One group was called the Accommodators, of which Tawaquaptewa was the leader, and the other group was called the Resistors. And what they were in disagreement about was how much influence to allow Anglo society. The Accommodators thought there were advantages to having access to Western medicine and some educational aspects, and also agricultural tools. The Resistors felt that this was all a contamination of the Hopi way and that the Anglos should be excluded from any influence whatsoever. So in an unusual ritualized pushing match, that's how the Hopi decided their disagreement, and that occurred in 1906. And it turns out the Resistors lost, and they left the village and started new villages at Hotvilla and Bakavi, which survive to this day. So Tawaquaptewa looked like he was the victor. But then a few months later, something outrageous happened. He and scores of his followers were captured and taken to the Sherman Institute in Riverside, California. They essentially were educationally incarcerated. And that was common around the United States. Many Indian schools in the U.S. designed to extinguish Native American culture and turn them into good white people. And Tawaquaptewa got there and surprised everybody. Because, first of all, he learned English in 5 months. Second of all, he began to teach the children traditional Hopi values and rituals. In fact, he convened a traditional Hopi eagle dance, which was so popular at the school, it was later performed at an educational conference elsewhere in California. He was said by Matthew Gilbert, a noted Hopi scholar, to have turned the power. And I'm going to read to you what Gilbert says. Tawaquaptewa helped preserve the Hopi way through an institution, that being the Sherman Institute, designed to destroy it. Tawaquaptewa exerted great agency and succeeded. He was said to have turned the power, and it was not to be the last time. So Tawaquaptewa stayed at the school for 3 years and then was allowed with his followers to return to Araiavi. And when he returned, he began to make Katsina carvings. And they were unique in the history of Katsina carvings because he never made an accurate Katsina. He distorted them because he thought that accurate representations should not be sold, that the Katsina religion should not be commodified. So I have 3 examples of his work here, and they show ranges of how he modified them. And I've written about him several times, including in my book on Hopi Katsina carvers, that he either mixed them up or made them up. So this is one that is modestly modified. It looks like a great horned owl, pretty close to it, but he's changed it. He's added all these polka dots, which the great horned owl does not have, and he's added this body paint that I've referred to as barbed wire motif. Someone else told me they thought it looked like dragonflies. That's a little more poetic than my version. At any rate, that body paint is not a Hopi Katsina body paint. He made it up. So this looks rather owl-like, but it is modified. This is another Tawaquaptewa doll. This one is a combination, a mixed-up Katsina. The terrace face kind of looks like a Hilili or a snow Katsina, but then he's added this knob on the side of the head that looks like a Tassaf or a Navajo Katsina. So this one is mixed up, a compendium of at least 2 Katsina. This third one is totally made up. It's got one horn on one side of the head, a feather on the other side of the head. He's got bear paws or badger paws on his face. Totally made up. He often made them up completely. He just was very, very creative. And he sold these to tourists over the years whenever they came for Katsina dances or were visiting the reservation. He sold them generally for 50 cents to $1 or $2. And with these dolls, he also turned the power because the naive purchaser thought he was buying a real Hopi Katsina, but Tawaquaptewa, true to his conviction, never sold a real Katsina to anybody because they were all modified or compromised. So he was able to make a decent living selling things to tourists, but did not compromise his religious convictions. So I'd like to end by showing 2 photographs of Tawaquaptewa. This first one comes from 1935. It was taken by Paul Coase, a Frenchman who spent a lot of time on Hopi, studying Hopi culture. What's interesting about it is note all the inventory. These are all Tawaquaptewa dolls, lots, polka dots. Note all the inventory there. You know, a lot of people who make Katsinas, they sell 1 or 2, they make another 2. They sell those, they make another 2. This guy had a lot of inventory, suggesting he wasn't living hand to mouth, that he was doing quite well with this. He also gave tours of variety for which he was paid. 1935. This photograph comes from a 1947 issue of Arizona Highways. And it shows him still making large katsinam, which is important because we know that late in his life, he was still able to make large, well-painted, carefully designed katsinam, or modified katsinam. And of interest is that the Brown University Museum in Providence has a number of Tawaquaptewa dolls that were collected in the 50s. That was in the decade before his death. And frankly, they're very rough. The carving is simple, the painting is blurry, and it shows that he was getting older and his fine hand was no longer, capable of fine painting and execution. So we can kind of chart his dolls over the decades, in part by size and execution. So that's what I have to say about this artist who for me is a beloved figure in Hopi history. And I hope you find it of interest. If you want to read more about him, he is featured in our book, The Great Tradition of Hopi Katsina Carvers, 1880 to present. Thank you.